breakfast puppies?
This podcast contains adult language and content and is meant for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Glitterbois.
Digital RPGs, PDFs, EPUBs. You like them, Jacob?
I have a love-hate relationship with them. I am one of those weirdos who loves books.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that digital media, PDFs, EPUBs, Mobies, whatever, have a search function. And as a game master, being able to, on the fly, look something up with just a keyword search is amazing. Or even as a player, like, how many times in our Palladium game when I'm there have I, quickly done a keyword search to pull out a question for somebody regarding their OCC or something?
Exactly.
The downside for me, and it's a very personal downside for me, is the fact that I spend so much of my weekday job reading on computers that doing it for gaming and stuff kind of detracts slightly for the fun. Because I'm reading tech support manuals and all this other stuff, and that's it. That said, I'm wearing a set of glasses now. I'm looking down the barrel of 50. I am in progressives. The ability to tweak font size, change reflectivity of fonts for non-PDF digital media, the ability to help friends and acquaintances and others who need accessibility to access gaming books and what you can do in the digital space with those. I actually have someone who I helped start playing Palladium just a couple months ago for the very first time in their life. They are blind. We figured out a way to hook them up with the right text reader that could read the core book for riffs. God damn. Yeah.
I've played very regularly at conventions with this one particular player who was legally blind, severely visually impaired, and would have either a phone or a tablet in front of him the whole time, bent over in landscape format, looking, like, holding it up. We're talking like 3-4 inches from his face, and scrolling through it. And at one point I looked over his shoulder and I noticed that, like, he had his phone sideways in front of him, and all the way it was a single sentence height of text. And he was just scroll, and then he would tap it, and like a typewriter, it would go down to the next one, and then he would keep reading it that way. So, I know people are hardcore purists about their books, but there's many, many, many reasons why PDFs are a godsend to the differently abled.
PDFs are both simultaneously the most easily accessible form of digital books, and oftentimes one of the least manipulatable, especially if it's a scan PDF as opposed to a not type font, but layout import PDF. There are more challenges to using accessibility software. Oftentimes, when you scale up the text, it doesn't flow as cleanly as it does in other settings. But it's not just PDFs. There's Mobies. There's, many, many forms that gaming books are now coming in.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get an idea here. Let's step back a moment and define the perfect PDF game. Like the ideal, the fictional perfect game book. For me, it would be PDF format, and it would have at least 2 different formats. One that was printed with, that was exported with low graphical content. And many games today that publish in PDFs will do that. They will have a screen version and a print version. And typically the print version is the one that looks good, and the screen version is the one that's lightweight and moves quicker. And yet, I have seen games swap that.
Yes.
The idea being that the print version is the one light on ink, and the screen version is the one that looks pretty in your hand. And I'm like, okay, well, don't do that. So anyway, you have your lightweight version that you can move back and forth very quickly with a potato. It needs to have all of its section headers and titles and page divisions need to have been exported as an index. Or a table of contents, or bookmarks, or an outline. Again, that term is interchangeable because every PDF reader calls it something else.
Yes.
For example, Acrobat, you have outline and bookmarks and TOC. And bookmarks are the bookmarks that you manually place, whereas the outline is what's there from the beginning, and then the TOC is completely separate. Then Zodo, which as I use on my tablet, has bookmarks separate combined with annotations, and they're all over the place. There's no standard of how they are implemented, and it's very frustrating.
Definitely.
Anyway, it needs the outline. You got to have that, because if you have a PDF of 100 or more pages and it's got a lot of different subjects, I need that outline so I can quickly go back and forth between those headings without having to manually create my own bookmarks.
Yes.
You shouldn't leave that on the user. You should take care of that in advance, dear publisher. Ideally, this is a lot to ask. I don't expect this.
I think you're going where I'm going.
I do not expect this, but ideally, every single reference in the book that says see page XX is linked to that page.
So now we're talking about probably one of the best laid out digital media games I ever have encountered. Nova Praxis by Void Star Studios. They have embedded jump around hyperlinks.
God, they're so useful. Depending upon what software you're using, if it's like Adobe or if you're using something free or if you're using Publisher or whatever, there's different ways of doing that. And sometimes it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
And I will not strike against a product if it doesn't do that.
No.
Because as somebody who has published games himself and who has gone through that process, page references that link are a pain in the ass.
Yes.
I had to manually go through the whole book and make them. I hope y'all appreciate that. It's okay. Anyway, and final major ideal is the digital PDF. This isn't even an ideal. This is a requirement. Cannot be locked down. If you lock down your PDF because of fear of piracy or something, I'm sorry, fuck you. You don't do that. You need to respect your consumer and let them make bookmarks. Let them print it. Let them extract pages. Let them do with it as they would if it were a physical product in their hand. You can't prevent them from ripping pages out of your book. Therefore, you should not try to prevent them from doing it digitally. Because, I'll tell you this, publisher, if you were considering doing that, I know how to break it. It's easy. It is super easy with an operating system called Linux to just break that PDF lockdown. So don't do it. It's a shitty move, and you will lose some respect from your customers, especially if you commit the foul sin of having complex page backgrounds behind your text.
God.
If you do that, and I am unable to go into the PDF and delete that background, there will be a reckoning.
You can find NPC outside your local dive bar. You can discuss your defense of DRM with him at that point.
You know, I have a love-hate relationship, as you say, with DRM. Mm-hmm. I can understand why it exists in many cases.
Yes.
This is just the shittiest of venues to put that kind of draconian DRM in.
Yep.
It's pointless. It's so pointless. Like, it is such a niche market that not only are you not losing sales because piracy doesn't cost money, not only are you not losing sales, you are pissing someone off who might have become a customer.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've discussed our love of digital media in the role-playing space.
Yes.
How many digital RPG books do you think you have?
For me, that's a difficult. The way I organize my collection, which is very on topic here, is I have a drive or a directory on my main machine that I have been cultivating this directory since PDF became an acronym, and it over the years has gathered many things from many sources, some across the great piracy, but many of those I've replaced with legitimate copies. And anyway, I have mixed in with every game in its classified subfolder of my great hierarchy. I also have all of its various sheets, printables, artwork, alternate versions if I can acquire them. So whenever I do any kind of a copy to either back it up or move it to a different machine, I'm watching and it's like I have roughly 72,000 files. I couldn't tell you how many of them are actual game books. And many are maps, such as in our last episode, we talked about 0 Hour Productions. I have all of his maps.
Yep. So in preparation for this episode, I decided I needed to find out exactly how bad my digital hoarding habit was. So I went through and I use a hierarchy of nested backup systems, a drive, an online drive, and then a online offline drive. Basically a remote cold storage drive. And I am sad to say that when I went through and did a survey of every rule book, not map, not handout, not character sheet, not quick game aid, I came up with 671 books.
That's it?
That's it.
I thought oh my God, the suspense that I was feeling, even as you were saying that number, you said 6, and I was like, where's he going with this? 170? What? Okay, there's going to be 1,000? Nope.
However, when I did the entire file count, I was somewhere in the 13,000 range.
There's a lot of files that come with digital games these days, especially if the publisher wants to shower you with stuff. You might buy a game, and it could be a simple game from Drive-Thru RPG.com, and it will come in a zip file. And you're like, oh, zip, I just bought this game. Okay, well, what's in the zip file? You have 5 different versions of the rule book, probably 3 of which are PDF, one's an EPUB, and one might even be raw text. Then you've got different versions of the map. You've got the cover files separated because they're bro, and you've got character sheets. You've got it's astonishing how many files you can get if you say you've only got 671, but just all of the supplemental material that you want to store alongside your collection is just as important.
Yep. And, I a big chunk of what balloons my bandwidth is I am always looking for better table references. combat flow sheets,
Yes.
that sort of thing. And so that's all archived in there as well.
Mhm.
Now, admittedly, one of the problems you run into when you become a inveterate hoarder of digital media, and especially if you're someone who tends to get it from not Yar Har, a fair amount of the files in there are Mac _OS X.
Oh, the underscore Mac OS. Yeah. Yeah. So it's basically just the same thing, but in a different directory structure.
Right.
What the? Yeah.
I actually I got curious in this process, and I realized I could free up nearly a quarter of a gig just by removing the Mac _OS files.
So I just looked on my network attached storage, my NAS.
Mhm.
I've got 271 gigabytes of RPGs. Now that does not include the map content, because I actually have that in a separate directory, and it does not include gaming apps like dice rollers or that old school TSR Dragon magazine collection that came in the CD-ROM or any of that. These are all separate.
Yep.
272 gigabytes. Yeah. So that's a shitload of files. How do we organize these things?
Well, I put a lot of thought into that. And I think that's kind of, to a certain extent, highly personal.
Mm-hmm.
How does your brain work?
Well,
it's like it's literally an extension to how do you organize your physical bookshelf?
yeah, no,
People do it completely differently.
So here's what I do. I have a central repository of all of my games. I have it divided into, I have a main directory that I call books, and I just call it books, but underneath books are all of my gaming books and all of their supplemental material. I have another directory, a top level directory called art, which I just keep for inspirational art that I want to randomly click through. Most of it is in wallpaper format. And I have many of my devices and computers will be set to randomly rotate wallpapers based on whatever mood I'm feeling in for whatever game I'm running that I want to keep myself inspired. And then I've got another folder, which is Kickstarter stuff. And the Kickstarter stuff is mostly unsorted. It's like a temporary place. I will put stuff there until I have gotten the whole thing. Because a lot of it's like preview copies or this or that. So I will keep that in a separate thing until I'm ready to organize it. And then I've got a completely separate one, which is just my Drive-Thru RPG export, my library export.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't use that as my main point of reference. Again, just like the Kickstarter stuff, I have all of my Drive-Thru RPG stuff. I will download it to that directory, and then I will manually sort it out. Underneath books, and I also have a separate thing that I call maps. Maps is where I do things like all of the 0 Hour stuff or all of Dyson Logos' stuff that I got from his Patreon when I was a follower and stuff. And then that's a whole other topic of discussion. But underneath my books directory, then I have everything set by major publishers. And then after major publisher, individual major, like a Palladium Books or Margaret Weiss Productions. Well, sorry, I take that back. It's either the publisher name or the system. It essentially something that my brain will look at and know what's in here. So I've got one that is just Dungeons and Dragons. And in it, I have all of the subdirectories based on the editions. I've got one that is Palladium Books. So I've got subdirectories based on the games. But then I've got like 2D20 system. And I've got different things there. Or Year Zero engine is another one that I do. It all depends upon how my brain organizes them, which is not beholden exactly to publisher. It just depends upon context. That's the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have everything on my main drive of my main computer. I have it backed up to a network attached storage system. And then I also have it with all of my other files uploaded to an off-site storage because I lost all my files once.
Mm-hmm.
Once.
And for me, I like I said, I use a deep freeze offsite storage, and I don't necessarily recommend that for everyone. In my case, it was a side effect of one of my side gigs where I work as a professional consultant, and I need to have this for some of my consulting work. The rate you pay to get offline deep freeze storage is not insubstantial. It's not break the bank, but I could eat for a couple of weeks for what I pay every quarter for my deep freeze. And the rate I get, for the rate I'm paying, I get an insane amount of storage. And so for what I need for work is like this tiny little sliver of it. And I was like, well, I have all this space. What am I going to do with it? I will never lose a digital game book again.
I use Backblaze. Backblaze personal storage. It has a very low annual fee, unlimited.
Yeah.
So I currently have 16 terabytes of data backed up to Backblaze from my personal home system for about $80, $90 a year. And they keep layered backups over a period of time. And if I want, I can literally just order a hard drive with all of my shit and they will send it to me. I'm very impressed with their backup system.
Yeah. Mine is a private company. I have to deal with some specific security concerns. So I have to go for a slightly higher one. I end up paying about $250 a year. So, and given I cook most of my meals at home, that's how I can get away with, quarterly payments being a couple weeks worth of food. Yeah, it's very effective. It is located outside the Pacific Northwest, in a geo and weather stabilized region of the United States is where their primary server farm is, but they have echoes. And again, if I ever needed a full hard drive, I do have to pay. I think I have to pay shipping on it, but like the hard drive is gratis.
My backup system is so arcane and complex that it would be so difficult to explain. Like I literally tried to sit and write down an explanation in the case of my demise, and I couldn't. So it's actually, that has been a major focus of the last 2 weeks of my life after WagonCon has been like, I need to reorganize this stuff in a way that other people who don't have my brain will understand in case I die and they need my Palladium books collection for some reason.
Dear listener, as one of the poor bastards who's actually had to deal with NPCs homebrew file systems, it can be daunting at times unless you know him well.
Yeah. So accessing all of these files, like you would say, before phones and tablets were ubiquitous, PDFs still existed and were common, and you could get RPGs in PDFs before they were easy to use. And at that time, we used them on our laptops or even our PCs. But now we have these wonderful portable devices. We got laptops that are, convertible into tablet format, or we have straight up tablets and phones. And you got to find a way to keep that up to date. What do you do?
Well, first of all, when it comes to, unless I know I'm only going to be using one book, I tend to be a laptop guy. Because, as previously mentioned, I'm usually looking stuff up on the fly, and I can type faster than I can thumb.
Yeah.
And so...
Same.
I tend to still be a laptop guy. If I know I'm only going to be working with one book, I have my Samsung tablet with the book pulled up in a PDF reader of choice. I actually use different PDF readers. depending on which book I'm opening, which sounds weird, but especially if you're dealing with ones where the publisher just scanned the best quality version that they could get their hands on of a product, some PDF readers do better with that than if it's an actual digital import.
Some, unfortunately, have built-in feature value add OCR, which you can't turn off. I had this problem with a lot of the official, actually official purchased from Drive-Thru, made by WotC, old school RPGs, like the basic era D&D things they released there, like the Rules Cyclopedia and all that stuff. You can buy almost all of their old games, except Alternity for some fucking reason. Anyway, you can buy almost all of their old games on Drive-Thru PDFs, but many of them break with certain types of OCR, and you will be trying to read this book and whole swaths of just blank text and interspersed in the middle of a paragraph, lines missing, some of it completely garbled. I hate it. And that's why I also have multiple PDF readers on one device.
The bane of my existence for several years was Dungeons & Dragons 3.0 and 3.5. Because when they initially released those in a PDF format, they did a simplified PDF format, and it didn't bring in the appropriate layering key for the page setup. I ended up having to cross-load that son of a bitch on a Macintosh, and pull it into a design studio to rip the background off so you could read the goddamn text on a screen.
This is the old days, though. Mostly we've gotten better than that.
Mostly we've gotten better than that. Yep.
So my solution involves my NAS, network attached storage. I use a Synology device. They are very affordable for what they are. And I have it set with a built-in system that is my replacement for things like Dropbox. It's called Synology Drive. It is the same damn thing, but it is attached to your NAS, and you don't have to pay. It's part of your system. You got a VPN set up on the NAS. It hosts everything. And I have, because I like my players to be able to access the same files, I also have about a half dozen tablets in the corner.
The hoarder of old tablets.
Old tablets or discount Amazon Kindle Fires that I've put the Google Store on. And I have them set up with a synchronization system called SyncThing. It is free. It is wonderful. It is on every single platform you can possibly think of, except for maybe not OS2 Warp. Probably not on OS2. Sorry about that, folks. But it synchronizes across everything in ways that you design, and it's wonderful. I have next to my books directory, I have my on deck directory, which is where I drag and copy the books and maps related to whatever games I'm running and or playing at the time. And then I've got my player files, my GM files. My player files sync to all of the devices, and my GM files sync to only the ones that I'm using. So I know that if we all come over to my house to play at this table, I can just hand any one of those tablets to someone, and all the files that they need to access are there, including our character sheets.
So let's talk a little bit about how not to do it. Also known as Just Jacob Hurts NPC.
Oh God. Oof. Here we go. Bring it.
I had a critical file loss at one point, and I lost a whole bunch of files, including a big chunk of my gaming directory.
Ooh.
I have since managed to replace all but one, and I was never going to let that happen again. The answer I came up with to ensure I never lost it again, NPC is bracing himself, I can tell, was on the hard drive of my computer, synced to my Google Drive, which was then synced to my Dropbox, and then synced to a completely different computer.
Okay.
That is not the way to do it, folks. You can do it. It works.
I mean, you can. I'm judging you over here, Jake. I am judging you so hard.
Give me a break. It was 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a house with no internet.
I remember I used Dropbox for a while, and then Condoleezza Rice was on the board of directors, and I dropped Dropbox like a hot potato and never looked back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not the way to do it. There are better ways. There are easier ways. There are cheaper ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about what you spend on Dropbox a month, you can get a great offsite, just like NPC was talking about, for the same amount of money or potentially cheaper.
Yeah. I heartily recommend folks look into getting some kind of a network attached storage system on your home network. Unless you are using fucking dial-up,
mm-hmm.
that means you have a home network connected to some form of broadband.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
And you can set up a Synology or any other network attached storage that has that function
mm-hmm.
to build in a VPN. And then on your phone, you just install a VPN client.
Mm-hmm.
You connect to that VPN, and then you open up the sync app and hit sync, or you don't even. It's probably already doing it now that you're connected.
Yeah.
That's how mine is.
Yeah, there's a lot of great out-of-the-box solutions that are cheap and easy and even allow you to share with other people.
And then you can stop paying Dropbox all that money.
Or paying extra money to Google to use Google Drive. Because let me tell you, when you get to become a digital gaming book hoarder, you'll blow through your free limit pretty darn quick.
Yeah, mine currently, I've got my Synologies. My Synology is currently set to a set of 16 terabyte drives,
mm-hmm.
which is what I'm uploading to this Backblaze. And I store everything there. I store clones of my hard drives, of my operating system, my user profiles, and everything there. And you know what? To me, the most valuable thing on that 16 terabyte is 272 gigabytes of gaming files that I have collected since PDFs existed. Seriously, catastrophic file loss once and only once. When you experience it, at that point, a paranoia takes over, and you start looking into ways to never have that happen again. I had to restore a significant portion of my media collection from CD spindle stacks in like 2015. So don't do that.
Yeah, no, and you know what? You go down this road, you become a digital role-playing book hoarder. It gives you something to talk about.
Yeah.
The number of conversations I've had over digital media storage with various people have been interesting. You also end up making a lot of interesting friends because there's this weird overlap in storing digital gaming book media and storing digital music.
Mm-hmm.
And how to do it. Like, I have a rather extensive music collection, much of which I got of CDs from bands that do not exist anymore, were existing before Bandcamp was a goddamn thing. That media is irreplaceable now.
Yeah.
And I've dumped it and backed it up, and it's the exact same theory. I have gaming books that by small press publishers that I really loved what they did and value, and so I just have a digital media version and I store it away, and every so often pull it out and give it a flip through for inspiration, or sometimes even run the system.
Yeah. So getting way back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, which is the whole concept of a print book versus a digital book. You just got me thinking there's probably today now more books, individual books available digitally than there are physically.
There are.
Because of the indie scene.
Mm-hmm.
Many indies don't make print copies. Mm-hmm. Unless they do like the print on demand through Drive-Thru or One Bookshelf or whatever. And there's scans of old ass games that are the only versions of that game that you can acquire.
Mm-hmm.
Digital books are something that even if you have a problem, even if you really just want that physical book in your hand and you want that smell of, unfortunately, the store, the owner chain smoked. All your books smell like cigarettes. Fuck you, Gold Dragon, Mobile, Alabama. Anyway, you want the smell of that book and that texture, that tangible thing. Mm-hmm. I understand.
I understand. I love it.
I do.
I'm nearly 50. When I was running 7th Sea, the role-playing game, to go to a gaming session for a game I was running, I had a duffel bag full of books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too old for that shit anymore. We have the technology. We can do it better. Grab the hardcovers that you want to as you're heading out the door for your game. Anything you maybe will need, throw it on a tablet.
Greg, if you're listening, you remember that bin full of Forgotten Realms books? Got them all in my pocket right now. Yeah, it's so handy, and highlighting is so useful. Being able to, instead of having a whole separate notebook full of things, being able to write my notes inside the game book without damaging the book. I can draw a section and make a note. I can put a comment here. It's so useful. So if, as many Palladium players still are, if you're pretty old school and you just don't want to get in on the whole PDF thing, I'm sorry, but I think you should give it another shot.
Give it another shot.
Get a good PDF reader and try and make use of all of the additional tools built in. I think it'll come around. Well, folks, join our Discord and tell us all of your stories of trying to make role-playing games work digitally, or tell us how much you hate PDFs. We will listen and nod and say, mm-hmm. Yep. And then stop by our online stuffs and give us some money, because we like money.
We like money.
Anyway, we have a coffee page. If you want to throw us some bucks to help us buy more Palladium books, and if you want to buy some swag, we have swag. Yeah, we got that. Redbubble. All of that's linked in our show notes. We appreciate it. Or don't, and just join our Discord and yell at us.
Well, no, because don't yell at us. The mod team is notoriously aggressive.
Yeah, seriously, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
We're pretty hardcore against dicks.
Yep.
So just be nice. Constructive criticism is welcome. If you just drop in and tell us that we suck, then we'll kick you out.
Yes.
Because ain't nobody got time for that. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Starships, magic, mystic martial arts, romance. All of these can be found in A Cloak of Blades by Isaac Scher. You might have heard my name before. I've done a lot of voiceover work for Breakfast Puppies, and I've recently released my first novel. It's available on Amazon as an ebook and paperback, and you can get it for free if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. I do hope you'll support my work as you're supporting Breakfast Puppies, and it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Have a good one.
You've been listening to The Glitterbois, a Palladium Books fan podcast. Glitterbois, Rifts, the Megaverse, and all other such topics are the property of Kevin Siembieda and Palladium Books. Please buy all their stuff and help keep them in print and making more games. You can order directly at palladiumbooks.com, and their entire catalog is available digitally at Drive-Thru RPG as well. Our opening music is 8-Bit Bass and Lead by Furby Guy from freesound.org. This closing music is Caravana by Philip Gross, available at freemusicarchive.org. All sound effects used are self-made or acquired via Creative Commons Zero license. If you like what you have heard, find us on Twitter and Facebook as The Glitterbois. That's BOIS. And check us out online at breakfastpuppies.com/glitterbois. And also join us on the Breakfast Puppies Network Discord at breakfastpuppies.com/discord. And if you want to help us out, please spread the word and help us build a community. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time.